This is a HeadGum podcast. Hello, this is Fake the Nation, where we follow news. We follow news the same way you unwillingly watch a horror film covering your eyes, but peeking through your fingers long enough to see Marco Rubio crying for his mother. I am your host, Negin Farsad, and don't worry, I try to make Fake the Nation a show that feels like a horror film was rammed through a romantic comedy processor, and it comes out the other side tasting like a delicious Sunday sausage. Anyways, I lost the metaphor there, but you get what I'm saying. Speaking of sausage, we'll talk about the chief dumb sausage imposing tariffs and talking about unconstitutional third terms. We'll also ask why people are wearing bedroom slippers on city streets and what fast food restaurants are winning America. Finally, we will also talk about red state flight and why it's happening and what it all means. And to do all of that, we have assembled like an incredible podcast panel to do all of this talking, all of this hemming and hawing, and we're so excited to have them joining us again. It's been a minute since he's been on this show. We're so happy to have him back. He's a writer, he's a comedian, and by the way, you've seen his incredible handiwork on TV shows like Full Frontal with Sam B and so many more. He also has a new book coming out called Good Game, No Rematch, a comedy book about growing up with video games. It is the incomparable Mike Drucker. Hi, Mike.
Oh, hello. Thank you for having me.
We also have, for the first time on the show, and it's a perfect time for her to come on because we have so many questions for her. She's host of the rePROs Fight Back podcast, and her organization just released the 50-state report card on reproductive and sexual rights. And we are going to ask her about that and where, a couple of interesting states might land in that set of report cards. What a time for this work. Very busy. I'm so sorry that this is a busy time for you in the worst way. It is the wonderful Jennie Wetter. Hey, Jennie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
And before we get into the show, I just want to remind listeners that you can support the show at patreon.com/Negin Farsad by becoming a Patreon. For as little as $4 a month, you get bonus episodes of the show. But what I like to also point out is for as little as $1 a month, you get nothing except for the wonderful knowledge that you're supporting a show that you love. And so I absolutely welcome people to do that. Also, if you pay like the 1 year fee all in one sitting, then there's like a little discount. And who doesn't love a discount in 2025? Right. Everybody, because we're like running headfirst into a recession. So take your discounts where you can. Let us start with topic number one. You guys, here's what's happening. People are wearing bedroom slippers outside while living their lives. And you've seen it on celebrity tootsies. You've seen them on civilian tootsies. And what's more stunning about this is that they all think that they're doing nothing wrong. And I believe wearing bedroom slippers in public should be tariffed and shut down. That's how I would like to handle it. But let me not start with a leading question. So instead, let me ask you guys, how horrible do you think this trend is?
I mean, I think, I don't know why we need to gentrify sandals. Which is what this feels like. It's like when rich people send their kids to nursery school, but they call it just school, or you know what I mean? Like, it's sort of like, we got it. I'm not wearing sandals outside. I'm wearing bedroom slippers. And it's like, okay, calm down.
Jennie, what are your thoughts on this, what I'd like to call a horrible trend?
Like, I get the need for comfort. Like, these are chaotic times. Everybody needs all the comfort they can get. And not to yuck anybody's yum, but that is, like, not my jam. Like, I just cannot imagine going out wearing my slippers. Like, do I put them on as soon as I get home to be as comfortable as I can at home? Yes. Do I wear, like, the most comfortable shoes when I go out? Yes. I'm not walking around in heels anymore. Like, those are gone. But, like, slippers, not for me.
You know, and it is one of those things is like where it's like They came for the heels and we said nothing. They came for the sandals and we said, you know what I mean? And like and look, I've actually never worn heels. I just decided early in life that like I did not have the kind of, you know, the gams that could sustain heel wearage. And like that has been, I've lived with that. And I think from like a fashion perspective, I've never loved myself for that. But like, but I understand also that I have sensitive arches. And I just think this doesn't make sense for me. Foot health perspective. Okay. I didn't want to have to be the one to invoke foot health, but there it is. I don't think these things, as fluffy as they are, have the kind of support that you need to be walking on them city streets. Also, I just think about how much grime is being like, you know, sucked into the very fabric of these bedroom slippers.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter that Justin Bieber did it. He can afford to buy a different bedroom slipper every day.
Or he's getting dropped off from an Uber and like walking into the door, or like his fancy car and like walking, you know, 10 feet into the building.
Yeah.
He's not walking around the city like I am, like all over. And like you said, I could not imagine walking around DC like multiple miles a day wearing slippers.
I agree.
If you're getting your steps from bedroom slippers, deduct all of your steps. They don't count anymore. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm sorry to listeners who are like are going to unsubscribe from this podcast because of the bold position I took. I still think you're great. I worry about your feet in there.
You're like the Gavin Newsom of slippers. Like you've changed your position on it, and suddenly you're like, everyone on the left is too mean to me.
Flip-flopping about flip-flops. Let us move on to this next issue in culture, which is there was this really fun new data set about fast food that was released by the Washington Post and whatever. I don't know who did it because it doesn't fucking matter because it's about fast food. But I did want to do a little quiz with both of you about it. So here's, so I'm going to ask you these questions and then you will be stunned by the responses. Okay. And then let me know what you think. So the first one is, which fast food chain is the fastest? Okay. Is it Taco Bell, Chick-fil-A, Baja Blasting, KFC, Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, or Burger King?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Which one do you think is the fastest?
My vote's Dunkin'.
Oh, that's
Jenny.
good.
Yeah. What do you think?
I'm kind of thinking Taco Bell. I don't know.
Ding, 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 ding. It is Taco Bell.
Oh, man.
Mike, you suck.
I lost.
So it is Taco Bell. Now, I have to also be honest, I don't know anything about Baja Blasting. Do you guys?
No, and that's why I thought it wasn't the answer. I was like, that cannot be the answer.
I know. Was that just like a lie that the Post threw in there? I was just like, that's in the running? How is that in the running? Okay. So apparently, Taco Bell is this, for the second straight year, has taken the speed crown with just 4.3 minutes. Chick-fil-A customers, this is interesting, waited almost twice as long for an 8-minute total. So while you're sort of like contemplating the anti-queerness of the location, you have 8 minutes to do that. You know what I mean? By the way, I don't actually know their politics right this second. Are they still that? Are they still? I don't know. Okay.
I have not heard that they have changed.
Okay. Listeners, email me or DM me or send me a carrier pigeon if you know where Chick-fil-A stands on gay rights. All right, let us move on to the next question. Who among these establishments gets your order right? So same list. Who gets your order right most of the time? The most of the times. Who do you think it is, Jenny?
Oh, man. And now I'm blanking on the list.
Okay, so we're looking at Burger King, Taco Bell, Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, Baja Blasting, whatever that is, Taco Bell.
Let's go with McDonald's.
McDonald's, okay. And
let's go with Baja Blasting. Let's go with Baja Blasting because someone's got to do
Yes.
it.
You guys, this is interesting because what did Chick-fil-A decide to do with their 8 minutes? They decided to get a 92% accuracy. They are at the top of the list of getting your order the most right, which you know, it's like that old adage, wait longer for your fast food meal, you'll get a correct meal.
Yeah, it's like what my grandpa said to me all the time.
Yeah, no, I hear that.
Yeah,
all the time.
Exactly. Burger King and McDonald's are next, which kind of makes, I mean, I am actually really disappointed in them as like the oldest chains that they weren't first. But they got the order right 88% of the time. And the one who struggled the most with this, you guys, was KFC at 81%.
Wow.
So 1 out of every 5 times, you're not getting what you ordered from KFC. Interesting. Okay, and my last question in this fast food bonanza is, what is the state that is the drive-through capital of the country? Like, what state has the most drive-throughs in the country? Is it Arizona, Minnesota, California, or Maryland?
I'm going to say Maryland. Because you got traffic going to D.C. That's the reason I'm going to go with Maryland.
Oh, okay. Jenny, where are you at?
I think I'm just going to go with California by, like, number of people in needing drive-thrus.
I mean, I think they probably did some sort of per capita analysis, but nevertheless, you're both fucking wrong. What? The answer is Arizona. This sort of makes sense to me as someone who's from I immediately just thought this has to be a state in the Southwest because it's where the like most I'm in New York City obviously, but like I grew up in Southern California and it just feels like the most car intensive place you could ever be. And Arizona also feels like an incredibly car intensive place. So it's just like, these are the people that are going to use the drive-thrus. Now, here's the fun part. Vermont, followed by the state of New York, the great state of New York, are the least drive-through enthusiastic states, which I was proud of.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I'm into it. All right, folks, hit me up. And specifically hit me up with your fond memories of Baja Blasting.
Sorry, I looked at Baja Blasting.
Yeah.
It has a very not safe for work definition on Urban Dictionary, if you want to share.
Wait, Baja Blasting, when you it's when you receive a blowjob from someone who has Mountain Dew Baja Blast.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
in their mouth when you have when you come, you have been Baja Blasted. Okay.
That's so specific.
Sorry, I had a very hard time reading that because I'm now the screen. It looks like the white balance on the video is off because I am so red just reading that. No, you know what, Andrew? That's what a bold producer does, and this is how you win. This is how you win a Webby right here, ladies and gentlemen. Andrew McGuire. And this is my Walter Cronkite moment, obviously. Okay, well, it's like, did I read this Washington Post article wrong? This makes me feel like I invented this in my head.
For Baja Blasting, so.
Is it just called Baja Blast? And I've been saying, but you know what? We're not going to look it up and no one's going to know because instead we're going to take a break and we're going to learn from our sponsors. And when we get back, we're going to continue talking. Ladies and gentlemen, and we are back, and we're ready with topic number 2. So we're going to start with a bit of good news. Folks, we won the Wisconsin Supreme Court seat that they only spent $1 kabillion on the race. By the way, we won that shit by a 10-point margin. And by we, I do mean Democrats because I think it's pretty obvious that I'm one, but this is a nonpartisan show. That we won that by a 10-point margin, 55-45. Elon Musk could not buy that seat, despite his best efforts at handing out $1 million checks and trying. So the seat now belongs to Judge Susan Crawford. I should also mention that there were 2 special elections in Florida, one to fill Matt Gaetz' old seat and one to fill Michael Walz's old seat. And in both cases, we lost. But again, good news. We won by a larger margin than expected, which is hard to be like, pew, 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 pew. But I will do a pew, 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 because cutting the margin for Matt Gaetz last time he ran was 32% win, and now that margin is a 15% win. So that's a significant number. And in the Wall seat, it was a 33-point win, and now it's a 14-point win. So again, these margins were cut in half. Let's keep cutting them in half and greater. Jennie, like, you know, as someone who's really into, you're so into reproductive rights, as someone, as our resident expert on reproductive rights, what do you think these elections are saying to us?
First of all, I have to say I am so excited about Wisconsin. I was born and raised in Wisconsin. My mom is still there. I know she is so grateful to not see any more ads. It was terrible. It has been miserable there the last several years with all of the elections. So super excited for that. And I think we can look back to even the November election and see abortion it's popular, y'all. It was on the ballot in 10 states. It won in 7, and that 7 should have a big asterisk on it, because Florida was one of those states, and it won by like 51, 52%, something like that. But it had a 60% threshold.
That's right.
So it lost. But like, that's huge in Florida to get like 50-some% voting to expand abortion access. So you're still seeing that this law, the abortion rights are really popular when people are allowed to vote for them. I think it just gets complicated when you throw in the politicians and other things where there are competing priorities. People live multifaceted lives. There are multiple issues they care about. And you could see a lot of states where like abortion rights won, but then they elected, you know, Republican members who were anti-abortion. So, you know, it's complicated in all places.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel still a little, you know, a little pep in my step. Do you feel any pep?
Yeah, I definitely feel pep in my step. One, I saw, and this could be apocryphal or whatever, but I saw someone post some stats that seemed to indicate that Elon actually had a worse effect on the election. So it wasn't just that he didn't buy it. It was that the other candidate on the ballot, the other Republican on the ballot only lost by 5%. I think it was a superintendent of schools. And so the conclusion was like, okay, if Crawford won by 10 then, Elon did not help it. He did not close the margin. And I understand that, because if I lived in Wisconsin and some D-bag is like giving out giant Publishers Clearinghouse style checks to the head of a college Republicans party, I would be furious. Like, that would make me want to vote against him more. And it's kind of a relief that that's what happened, because I think my fear was people would be like, oh, if I can get $50 taking a photo of myself in front of a voting booth, that's what I'll do. You know, like, I thought that, I didn't think everyone would fall for it, but humanity has let me down a lot recently.
I also feel like that result is less surprising when you take into consideration the loss in Germany, where Elon put a ton of money in Germany. I don't know if he was doing like arena tours and handing out checks or whatever, but he was definitely, you know, putting a lot of money into that race where he handily lost. Again, because I think he's like one of those villains that people like to come out and vote against. Yeah. And one of the effects they're talking about is like he's a more effective, you know, villain than Trump is. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's true for me personally. I'd like to say they're equivalent levels shit. But I think, yeah, for some people like that, he is a really effective villain in terms of motivating the vote. I want to now, unfortunately, move on to more grim subjects. First, I just want to remind people that they're still like rounding up people and sending them to this mega prison in El Salvador without any explanation and without due process. And I just wanted to point out someone who was recently detained, and we don't know his whereabouts. His name is Ali Reza Daroudi, and he's an Iranian doctoral student at the University of Alabama. And ICE picked him up, and they haven't disclosed his whereabouts as of, I think, yesterday when I looked this up. Anyways, this is why, I mean, we want people from the international community to want to come to American universities.
Yeah.
And I'm a product of that. One of my earliest memories is seeing my parents be naturalized, and they came, they fell in love with the place, they stayed, they raised a very patriotic daughter. So my brother is, I don't know where he is on the patriotism scale, but he's a good American, I'll tell you what. This just really continues to upset me. If there's anything you guys want to add on the level, like, this to me is the signal, not the noise, or whatever the expression is.
Yeah, this is like I mean, as many people have said online, this is the moment. Like, we're no longer waiting for the bad things to happen. They are now occurring. People are being disappeared off the streets, sent to a fucking like torture prison in another country, and then the government's going, oh, we messed up one of them, but we can't get him back because he's in another country now. Bye. That's like horrifying. Like, that's what they do in like dystopia movies. I don't want to compare it to sci-fi because that's, again, it's happening now. But like, this is shit that usually we're like, no, that's not what would happen. You guys are exaggerating. They're not going to just pick people off the street and hide them and deport them. And you're like, no, that's what's happening.
And this is where you can see what's been happening being so effective, right? This blitz of all of these attacks on, like, threatening to shut down the education department, like gutting USAID, like all of these things which are taking everybody's attention. There's so much noise and so many things happening. The new wild thing the president may say, and all of these things are competing for attention. So when you get to some of these things that are like really emergency things that need to be getting that full attention nonstop, that people should be yelling and screaming about, everybody's tired. There's too many things they're fighting all at once. And people have their lives to live. So, like, it's really devastating to not see it getting as much attention and yelling as it should. It's getting a ton. But, like, this, like you said, this is the thing we need to be really yelling about right now.
Yeah, and I also can understand if people are like, I'm really mad about this. I'm more mad about, the closure of Social Security offices and what that means or whatever. Like, I think I can see that we might sort ourselves out into a country in three parts. One is mad about these detainments, the other one is mad about these closures, and the other one's mad about just like the wholesale gutting of the federal government on all fronts. And so that's okay. You know what I mean?
We can't do all the things all at once.
If you don't have the bandwidth to be mad about three things at the same time, that's cool. Let's all sort effectively and then be out on the streets about it. Let's talk a little bit about one of the dumb things that I probably shouldn't even talk about, because it's like noise and not signal or whatever, which is the shit he's been saying this week about running for a third term. He was on one of the Sunday shows, and he said, "Oh yeah, we're thinking about running for a third term. Sure, yeah, there's ways to do it." Is this bullshit to just deflect from Signalgate, which was the most hilarious / dangerous scandal of this current administration? That's like the first scandal that feels like most people actually knew about it and could track it. And do you think this is real, or do you think no?
It feels like one of those things with Trump. Like, you always need to kind of pay attention, right? Like the wild things he says never completely go away, right? Like, we're still talking about Greenland. So, like, they never completely go away or, like, completely are off the table. But it is much more important to focus on the things that are actually happening right now. And if you're going to, like you said, like we've said, like, you can't do all the things all at once. let some of the legal experts worry about like talking about why that can't happen in the fight. Don't waste your angry time on something like this. Like, I think there are so many other things that we should be focusing on that are happening right now and are having impact right now.
Yeah, and, you know, I also think that there's not a clear line between is this him trying to distract people and is he actually trying to do it? Like, if a dog gets distracted by a squirrel, they still want that squirrel. Like, they're moving to a new topic, but they still really want to get that squirrel. And I think for him, whether it's strategic or not, I do think he means it. And I do also think at the same time, it's a distraction from much more pressing issues. And so I kind of think it's both.
Yeah, that feels right.
Okay, yeah. I do, because it feels like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've been wrong before. I've been right before. That's the annoying thing, because I wanted to say, well, this is one of those things where, like, he would have to do 100 things to make that a possibility constitutionally, or he could just say no, or he could install people that would run, and I mean, there's all sorts of things. I just don't know that enough people would go along with the level of things that it would require, and so that's kind of why I think it's bullshit. You know, but again, I've been wrong before, I've been right before. It's like, you don't know, like, necessarily with this fucking guy, which leads me to the next thing, which is that 1 million tariffs are going into effect today. Quote, Liberation Day, which is what he's calling it. I don't understand. I mean, the day that 1 million tariffs go into effect, we've talked a little bit about, the idea that people are, like, changing their behavior because of this. Like, we might be just literally creating our own recession because people are like, I shall not spend because of these tariffs going into effect. Have you felt that yourselves?
I mean, I haven't really, just because, my money mostly comes from writing. I don't go a lot of places. But at the same time, I do buy a lot of toys that adult men shouldn't be buying. And so I know that those are going to get more expensive. So I know a lot of the luxury items that I enjoy are going to get more expensive. And also food, of course. But I also know I'm privileged in that I won't be the hardest hit. Like, some people are going to be ruined. And that's going to be sad to see.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I got there's this little, like, clothing and toys retailer for kids, and I go there, a couple times a year to stock up on shoes and whatever for my daughter, and they just sent out an email to everyone just being like, these tariffs will affect us. We've looked into it, and so if you want to, like, stock up before they go into effect, like, you should come in. And I thought it was a brilliant email from a marketing standpoint because A, I don't think they're lying, and B, might as well. These purchases will be harder. I mean, and they're necessary purchases for parents, right? Where does the tariff thing stand for you, Jenny?
So I'm really thinking about, like Mike, I feel like I'm in a fairly privileged position, but I live in Washington, D.C., and I am thinking about all of the people here who have lost their jobs, whether they worked for the government, or I have friends who had contracts with the government, or I'm in the NGO sector with a lot of implementers who had USAID grants, so they've lost their jobs. And so just thinking about all of these people who have gone from having a steady job to now not having a steady job, now are having to worry about tariffs. And so I just thinking of all of those people that will be impacted, family back home who may be impacted back in Wisconsin, people I grew up with who are farmers, how this is going to impact them. The list kind of goes on and on of thinking through all of the ways that this is going to touch people's lives in ways that people maybe haven't thought of yet.
It's also, what's interesting is, like, usually, like, with let's say the ACA or something like that, presidents go on a big tour and then they go and explain, this is what I'm trying to do, and this is why, and they get buy-in from people. They get public opinion to support what they're doing through just straight up politicking around the country. And I don't feel like I've heard a thing of like, oh, this is what we're trying to do. Like, I just haven't heard the story of why any of this is fucking happening. It feels chaotic and without reason. And I think the truth is that it's kind of like without reason. I mean, Donald Trump was never like one of our great economists. So it's like, I don't think he knows what he's like doing. And he has, some, again, I mean, I've mentioned this before, but it was like a 19th century tool, tariffs, for when things are really different. And he's like just caught up in this McKinley vision of tariffs. And so I don't know. I don't know if you guys have family that are Trump supporters or whatever. Like, I don't know that even they could tell you, like, what is the story? How long will this last? How long will we expect to feel the pain? He said vaguely, like, well, there might be some pain. Okay, how long? And if it was a war, the thing is, if it was a war, I think people would be like, or if it was like a 9/11, Americans would be like, we get it.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure, yeah.
But there isn't like a precipitating event.
Yeah.
Well, and I think tariffs, they're complicated, right? Like, people don't know exactly what it means. How they're hearing about it is like, we're going to stick it to these other countries. So, like, they don't quite understand, like, those countries aren't paying for that. Like, you're going to end up paying in what you buy. Like, the tariffs are going to impact you and what you have to pay for things. And it's kind of complicated. It's not like a direct, like, this is going to happen and this is exactly what's going to change for you, because it's going to depend on the product, how many times it leaves the country or comes back. Like, you're often talking about, the auto industry in Detroit. Like, Canada's right across the bridge, so things go back and forth and back and forth. Are they going to be tariffed like 10 times in the process? Like, what is that going to do to prices?
I mean, and the thing is, I have some family members who work in the car industry, and they're not Trump people, but they are surrounded by them. And it sounds like there's like currently a lot of denial. Like, he knows what he's doing. He's going to get through this. It won't be that bad, or like, I'll tighten my belt a little. But people aren't going to have to tighten their belts a little. Like, their belts are going to bisect their entire bodies. Like, it's going to be really bad.
Yeah.
And but also for an indeterminate amount of time. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not like until we defeat Hitler, guys, let's just... It's not that, right? It's like a fucking indeterminate amount of time. It's so crazy.
Or it's not alone, right? Like, it's not just tariffs. They're talking about slashing Medicaid. So then what is that going to mean for people who are already struggling, and then now they may lose their health care, their prices may go up. Like, we talk about these things in silos and disconnected, but they're all interrelated and impact how you live your lives. And if you're going to be hit by all of it all at once, that's going to be really hard.
Because someone who's tariff sensitive, which, by the way, statistics show that it's really like the middle class that ends up bearing the brunt of the tariffs, is also... That same person is more likely to be Medicaid sensitive. They're more likely to be Social Security sensitive, right? Like, so you're right. These things are so super interrelated. Also, in terms of just like doing the popular thing, if he had focused the tariffs on just China, that would have been popular, because apparently over 50% of tariffs against China are seen as like a popular move because China is seen as encroaching on our business. And so that, I think, if he wanted to just do a more popular thing that was maybe also, not necessarily like economically sound, focus on China, it just doesn't make any sense. And I wonder, the argument that they've made on I think it was Howard, what's his name? Lutz said, we're not entitled to have cheap goods, or like that's not one of our rights, is to like have cheap goods. I'm paraphrasing. And it's interesting because I will say that to fucking a single mom or whatever. What is she fucking entitled to? It's the idea that like, and it's not about cheap goods. It's about surviving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, let's say even just a cell phone, right? And I would say that even if you're lower class and you need to work, you need a cell phone. It is very hard to survive in modern society without a basic cell phone. So let's say you're buying a basic cell phone that's $100. The difference between $100 and $150 will be a lot to you. Whereas to, again, billionaires, they're like, well, if, my iPhone is just another $500, that's inconvenient, but I can pay the difference. It's a lot different when you have a lot of money.
Yeah. Everything's a lot different. Now, let me just quickly close this segment by talking about Cory Booker. So Cory Booker spent 25 hours speaking on the Senate floor. It's the longest that anyone has ever done that. The record holder before him was Strom Thurmond, who was an interesting dude. And I am impressed. I mean, he spent the entire time, railing against the Trump administration by and large, reading testimony of people who had been detained, just like stuff. It was all very centered on resistance. I don't know. Jenny, what did you think of Cory Booker's move here?
I think this is a little bit of what we needed, right? We needed to see the fight coming from some of the members of Congress. I think after the continuing resolution and budget funding, where they didn't put up that fight for filibustering it, I think people were really disillusioned with all the things that are happening and not seeing the members put up some sort of fight. So it is really nice to see. It was important. He talked about a whole range of issues that really needed attention. And I think it was hopefully a re-energizing moment that we know Democrats don't have a ton of tools in their toolbox right now with Republican control of all the things in the Supreme Court and all the things, but finding the things you can do to slow things down, to make them take those hard votes, just like gum up the works as much as you can to try to slow any sort of progress is really important.
I mostly had questions about, did he use a diaper? Like, I had more diaper-related questions. Mike, what were your questions?
But he actually explained it afterwards.
Okay,
he stopped
let's
eating
hear it.
on the Friday before, and he stopped drinking water on Sunday. So he dehydrated and kind of almost fasted, but with a purpose. And so that's how he didn't have to go to the bathroom, was he just sort of dehydrated himself and made sure there was no waste in his body.
Oh my God. So, and then he spoke for 25 hours on no energy?
Yeah, it's insane.
I would have just done diapers. You know what I mean? No one's asking me, but that's what you know what I mean? And I would have done diapers, and then I would have just walked around with a nice air freshener. And I would have been like, do you guys want fucking democracy, or do you want me, you know what I mean? Because I gotta poop my pants if we want democracy. That's what's happening. There, you know what I mean? There, you can't have a fresh air and butt air and a democracy at the same time. You know what I mean? And that's something that our forefathers talked about at length.
I remember that.
All right, let us move on to topic number 3. This is a little related to topic number 2, but there is now evidence that people are leaving red states over the abortion bans. States with total abortion bans in total lost about 128,700 residents in the first year following Dobbs, and if that trend continues over a 5-year period, it means a 1% loss of population in those states. Now, Jenny, this is one of your key issues. Did you see this trend, and were you surprised to see the stats?
I'm not surprised. I think this really comes down to a couple things, and I actually think it's bigger than abortion as well. I think this also leads into the gender-affirming care bans we're seeing in states and people moving out of those states to protect their young ones, to make sure they are getting care in states where it is safe and they are not going to be as harassed. But yeah, if you think about it, if you are an OBGYN and you are in a hostile state, you are having to turn people away or not be able to give people the care they need. You're seeing a lot of doctors leaving those states. You're seeing a lot of young people, when they think about where they want to go to college, take that into consideration when they decide where they want to go to college, to make sure they're in a state where they can get access to the care they need. And yeah, if you're thinking about getting pregnant, even if it's a wanted pregnancy, right? You want to be in a state where you can get access to the emergency care you need. And the case working on if states have to provide that basic minimum level of care where you can get an abortion to save your life and your health. That is still working through the court systems. And so you definitely have states where they have those bans where you have to be at death's door before you can get an abortion. And so it's like a game of chicken, right? Like, are you dying enough where we can give you the care you need, or do we need to wait longer? Does that person need to try and travel out of state? Idaho, last I heard, was airlifting about 5 women a month out of state to get access to care.
5 women a month were being airlifted?
Yeah. So
it's so ridiculous.
Goes into people's thoughts, right? Like, you have to think about where you're going to live and the health care you're going to receive. And I think a lot of people are making those calculations right now if they have the ability to move. And I think that is also a big key, right? People who don't have the money to move are stuck in those states and maybe not be able to travel to access care. They're being forced to carry pregnancies they don't want. And those have long-term impacts, whether that is it's preventing economic instability for long term, whether it is staying in contact with a violent partner that you otherwise would have been able to cut contact with, or health outcomes. People talk about, risks with abortion, but the risk is not having an abortion or not having an abortion. It's having an abortion or being pregnant and giving birth. And that is a much greater risk. I think the risk is 14 times higher than getting an abortion. So all of those things are things people are needing to think about right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I have a friend who lived in New York and died in childbirth. And it was one of those things where it was, as the child was being born, there was a complication. And she had the best of care. Now, think of people who have the worst of care. Like, they're going to end up with so little care. Her condition, there was a 50-50 chance of surviving, and unfortunately she did not. But they gave her a chance. These women are going to be not being given any chance. And I just think we're going to see more, maternal mortality rates skyrocket.
And I think the other interesting thing is the type of people who are moving. We have like a national shortage of like doctors and stuff like that. And then you look at these red states and it's a lot of OBGYNs being like, why would I put up with this? I don't want to, I don't want to go to court. I don't want to go to prison. I don't know what it does to their insurance premiums, but I'm sure it does something. And obviously like doctors and insurance is a whole other basket of misery with the litigatory world we live in. So it's those kinds of professionals. And then the other people who are moving are young professionals who are just like valuable talent for any state's, revenue perspective. So that's, you're losing some of your like best people, your economic drivers you're losing because of this abortion ban. Because again, if I'm in my 20s or 30s or whatever, I'm in my prime, like I want to have a kid years, I do think it would be tough. I mean, having done it, and also, I'm sure IVF is a factor for some of these people. And I wonder how much of that you've seen, Jenny, with IVF being a factor, or the the sort of political legal volatility of IVF in some of these states.
Yeah, there's definitely been some uncertainty. Now I'm going to blank on the state. I think it was maybe Louisiana.
Yeah, I think
don't quote me on that. Where there was like a lot of these states have bans that are like almost personhood, and so there was a clinic where they had a mistake happened. Somebody like had dropped the petri dish, and so they were trying to sue for like loss of life, and so clinics were like, oh God, like that would just like shut down clinics if they had to worry about that kind of legal risk, and so that would block everybody's access to IVF. So you've seen a lot of lip service being paid to making sure to protect IVF because that is popular. Even some people who are anti-abortion, I think there's a lot where it's still not. But I also think it's also really important to note right now, it's not stopping here, right? It is not stopping at abortion. It's not stopping at young people's access to gender-affirming care. It's going to go to everybody's access to gender-affirming care. It's going to go to birth control. We're already seeing the administration trying to attack Title X providers. Those are providers who provide family planning services to those who are low income. Again, Medicaid has family planning coverage, so if Medicaid gets cut, that's going to be impacted. You often see people trying to attack birth control as causing an abortion, which it does not, but you're going to see a lot of that conflation happening to try to restrict access. There's a case in Texas where a father is trying to sue to prevent young people from accessing care without parental consent for family planning. So, this could have huge implications because Title X requires young people to be able to get confidential care. So he's trying to sue to prevent that. So again, all these gateways of clicking open where it could get worse.
Well, fuck, Jenny. God.
I'm a bummer. I'm sorry,
Why did
y'all.
you have to bring down the mood so hard? No, I also, but it's interesting because I also felt like the other story that keeps, that people talk about, especially with the manosphere stuff, is that people are leaving blue states because of taxes to go to red states where they have a lower tax burden. But the funny thing about this story is that people are leaving red states with a lower tax burden to go to blue states with a higher tax burden. So it's maybe it's a wash, although it does suggest that we're sorting ourselves into different types of states that which I don't love. I just think we need to be a nice big stew of a bunch of different political and cultural opinions, and we live together and we figure it the fuck out. These fortification of these bubbles that will turn into concrete walls is really troubling for me. So anyways, I join you on bringing down the mood, Jenny. That's what I just did.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on this, Mike? Do you have something really fucking upsetting to say?
That would help. I don't know. It's just horrifying. And going to your point really quick, if let's say some fucking pro-natalist couple moves to Texas and then two OBGYNs move to New York. I feel like the Texas has been on the losing side of that transaction.
Yeah.
And I know it's not one for one. It's not like one person leaves, one person goes back. But if you're losing your professionals, your brightest students, your hardest workers, just for people who are I want to retire and not pay taxes.
Yeah.
You're not winning.
Yeah. Right. All right. Folks, that is the end of our show. What a fun time I had speaking with the two of you. What a delightful panel you made. I wanted to let the people of Fake the Nation know where they can find you and all of the wonderful works that you do. Jennie Wetter, where do they do that?
Sure. You can find the podcast rePROs Fight Back on all your podcast apps and on social at rePROs Fight Back. You can find me on Blue Sky at Jennie, and that's Jennie with an IE in DC.
Oh my God, follow her and everything she does. And now more than ever, we need people like Jennie out there explaining all this shit to us and figuring it out. Thank you so much for doing that. Mike Drucker, where do we find you?
You can find me on Blue Sky at mikedrucker.bsky.whatever. You can find me on everything else as at Mike Drucker is dead. So Instagram, Threads, if you're weird about it. And I again have a book called Good Game No Rematch. I'll put it in front of my face here. It is a book about growing up with video games. It is light and funny and goofy and has nothing to do with politics.
Guys,
just what we all need.
Yes, the antidote to our current times is Good Game No Rematch by Mike Drucker. And I can say from personal experience that Mike is so, obviously you've seen from this episode, but also just everything he does is incredibly funny.
Thank you.
So
That's
this
really nice
book
of you.
will absolutely deliver. And you know where to find me and everything I do. If you're listening to this episode on Thursday, you can also catch me in Chicago on Wait, Don't Tell Me. And I will also be back to wait in Chicago, I think on April 24th-ish. So get tickets, because you can always, if you're in the Chicago area, come see a live taping. They're so fun. Otherwise, I want to thank everyone who makes this show a possibility. That's our wonderful producer, Andrew McGuire. Thanks to everyone at HeadGum. You guys, and I also forgot, one of the things I really wanted to do was I wanted to let you guys know about the town halls that are happening. There's some town halls with Ro Khanna in Nebraska that are happening in May. Look it up. There are, now I can't find my notes about this, which is so great. And I forgot, and I can't find it. Anyways, but there's town halls happening in Nebraska with Ro Khanna, and you should go check those out. I want to keep reminding you guys that there are town halls to go to, and to make your voices heard. So again, back to who I want to thank. I want to thank our wonderful producer, Andrew McGuire, again. I want to thank everyone at HeadGum again. I want to thank Gaby Alter for our theme music. You can reach us at fakethenationpodcast@gmail.com. If you have any questions or concerns, you can support the show at patreon.com/Negin Farsad. And otherwise, we'll be back in your earballs next week.
That was a HeadGum podcast.